Hey guys, this is Ali, and in today's video I'm giving you my tutorial on how to shoot hyperlapses. There's a few different ways you can go about doing a hyperlapse. You can do it on a tripod, a monopod, or you can use a gimbal. And I've used all these methods before, but the method that I like the most is actually shooting handheld. It's so simple and so easy, and anyone can do it, and you can actually shoot raw stills, which gives you basically all the raw information to edit your hyperlapse, which is great. So I'm just going to demonstrate now. I'm going to switch to stills mode on the GH5. I'm going to go to manual mode, and I'm going to set my white balance to what I feel is like the right white balance for this scene. You can use auto white balance, but it might change for every picture you take, so it's always a good idea to keep it the same. Also, the same applies for your aperture. You can change your shutter speed if you want and adjust to that. Let's say if the lighting is changing quite a bit, then it's always better to change your shutter speed and not your aperture, because the focus might shift, or you might change the depth on your stills. I like shooting on the GH5 because it's easy to go handheld, because it has great stabilization, especially when you combine it with a 12-35 lens, which also has lens stabilization. Right guys, now I'm going to show you my screen and how I like to shoot. I basically always like to shoot in RAW to capture all the information that I want, so my quality is always on RAW, and I like to use an aspect ratio of 16:9 to give me that sort of wide look. And I also like to have my guidelines on, so you can see I have as many intersections as you can have on the GH5. And what I do is I use these intersections to find my point of interest. I basically use that point of interest to keep the frame the same in between every picture that I take. You can see these small tiny blue water barrels at the top of these flats. Keep that intersection on this barrel for every picture that I take. Okay guys, so I'm going to shoot at 12mm, so I'm going to zoom all the way back, and I'm going to use these lines on the floor, we'll show you now, as basically a guide of me walking forwards. So I'm going to follow one of these lines and take a shot every one step. Now, the important thing when you're taking a hyperlapse is to keep your camera at the same level as much as you can. And I always, or most of the time anyway, use the viewfinder. Your eye level is always the same. So whenever you take a picture and come up and take another picture, it's always the same. You can shoot like this and try and keep the camera at the same level, but I personally like to use the viewfinder because it also stops you from being distracted by the people around you. Because I'm not going to lie, you do look a bit silly when taking these hyperlapses, and I always get funny looks from people, but who cares? I personally like to do my hyperlapses in 1 or 2 steps. Now, you can do as many steps as you want. The more steps you take, the quicker your time lapse will be, so the more movement you have. I found that it's best for me that I do 1 step, and if I need to, I can speed it up and post even more if I have to. We've got these lines on the floor now, and the way I do it is I'd like to do 1 step, take a picture, another step, take another picture, and another step. Now, in an ideal world, you want to use the same intervals between your shots, but when doing it this way, it's not always the same, but it works out every like 2 seconds or every 1.5 seconds. So yeah, let's just start, and I'm going to start doing the hyperlapse and we'll see how it comes out. Okay guys, I'm going to end it here. I've done maybe half of the distance of the whole walkway. It's a bit long doing hyperlapses, I'm not going to lie, but it's worth it because the footage looks really, really good. So, because I shoot everything in 24p or 20 frames per second, that means basically every 24 pictures that I'm taking of the hyperlapse equal 1 second. I like to aim for like 3 to 4 seconds. So yeah, let's have a look at how it looks like on camera. So if we do a close-up of the footage, you can see that there is some shake there. But it does look pretty cool, and you can see the clouds moving. So again, this is going forwards. Okay guys, so now we found this really, really cool spot where you have these leading lines that take you to these really cool and grungy looking flats. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, use my grid on the camera to find a point of interest. I think for this, I'm probably going to use the top kind of water barrel, if that's what it is. So I'm going to use that as my sort of focus point and keep it at the middle of the frame with that intersection at the top. Again, we're going to do a picture every one step and we'll see how that goes. Right, so we just finished now, and let's have a look at the footage. And you can see it's already kind of smooth. We just need to apply a bit of warp stabilization in post. Okay guys, so as you saw earlier, I was actually shooting from the from my hips versus using the viewfinder, only because for this part I wanted to get these kind of what do you call these? I don't know what you call these.
I don't know either.
Okay, so I use these as lead lines, and I wanted to get more of them in the shot, so that's why I shot from my hip, and I tried to keep it level as I was moving forward. So if I shot from my, eye level, the viewfinder, I would miss some of these. So that's why I did that. And that's the great thing about the GH5. You have the LCD and you can just shoot like this, and it's super simple and easy to follow, and it's most of the time it's easy to view through the LCD. If it was really sunny, it might be a bit difficult, so that's just something to keep in mind. Now we're going to go to another spot and get another hyperlapse. Let's do it. Okay guys, so we finished taking the hyperlapses. Now we're going to go back to the editing room and put them together, and I'm going to show you how I do that. Let's go. Okay guys, now I've come back home and I've downloaded the stills, and I've created these 3 folders, hyperlapse 1, 2 and 3. And there are a few ways you can go about post-processing the raw images into your hyperlapse. I used to import into Lightroom and do my adjustments and export as JPEGs and then bring back into Premiere Pro or After Effects. And that's fine, you can do that still, but I found a better way of doing this, and I've been using this method for the last 2 years or so. And it's essentially using a time-lapse software. So software that's specifically been designed for time lapses, and it's called LRT Time-Lapse. And if we open that software, and the software is not free unfortunately, but I think it's worth it, especially if you want to get into this in a professional way. But if you don't want to buy the software, then obviously you can just use import them into Lightroom, do your adjustments, and then export them together into JPEGs, and then import them back again into Premiere Pro, and then apply your warp stabilizer. But for me, I just like to use LRT time-lapse, and then if we have a look here, you can see that I'm importing my stills now, and if I play back here, you can see what it looks like, and it's saying to me that you've got 6 seconds of footage here and 182 pictures. So the first thing I do is create keyframes, and then I'm going to save that and drag it into Lightroom. And now it's going to find my images, and then I'm going to import these into Lightroom. Then I'm going to start editing my images. So I'm going to start the first one. I might just bring down my highlights a bit, bring up my shadows, bring my whites down a bit, bring up my blacks, maybe add a bit of vibrance to the image, add a bit of contrast, maybe a bit of dehaze. And I'm just going to keep it a quick one, but you can do, you know, any sort of editing that you want in Lightroom because you pretty much have all the raw information. I might just go into Adobe Color Space because this has a bit more contrast, and maybe bring up the shadows a bit more. There we go. And then what I do is I go back into my library and then I select all my images, as we do here, and I'm going to sync settings, including the crop because we haven't really cropped. And once that's done, I'm going to go into metadata and I'm going to save metadata to files. Okay, next I'm going to reload back into LRT time-lapse. And I'm going to auto transition and then use deflicker. Might just bring it down a bit and then hit apply and then save, and then go back into Lightroom and I'm going to go into my metadata and I'm going to read metadata from files again. Okay, so that's done now. Now I'm going to export. And I'm going to go into my LRT time-lapse preset. And then I'm going to select the same folder that I used earlier, Hyperlapses and Hyperlapse 1. Save it in here. And I'm just going to hit export. And I'm just going to wait for that to render now. Basically, Lightroom is exporting the JPEGs now. I'm just going to wait for that to finish. And now I can create the video in LRT time-lapse, and it gives you the codecs, the output file location. So I usually go ProRes, and for the purpose of this video I'm actually going to do a 1080p export, but usually I do a 4K export. Sometimes I do 4K UHD, but for this I'm just going to do 1080p, and I'm going to keep it at 24 frames per second. You can choose the frame rate that you want from here. For this, I'm just going to do, I actually should do 23.976 because that's the one that I used on when we were filming. So I'm going to change the frame rate to 23.976 and speed is going to be 1:1, and I'm going to do a color sampling of 422, and I usually have this sharpen ticked. And then I'm going to render the video, and we have it loading here at the bottom. Okay, so that's done now, and if I go into Premiere Pro, I can import my Hyperlapse 1. It should be right at the bottom of this. Here we go. File into here, and we have it here. I apply the warp stabilizer effect, and I always stick detailed. I start with 50% usually and see what that looks like, and once that's done I can play with the percentage. Sometimes you don't really need to go to 50%, sometimes 50% does work, so it's a case of trial and error. Sometimes 5% is okay. So I'll wait for that to render now. Okay, so it's done processing now. I think 50% for this might be a bit too much, so I'm going to start at 3%. Then what I usually do is have a look at that, and it's decent. It's not the best example. I was very tired. I had 2 hours of sleep that day, so I didn't shoot it very well, but that's not an excuse. So what I do if I can't get the best result that I want, I nest it again. I might speed this up just a little, maybe up to 200%, so we get 3 seconds of footage. Yeah, here we go, that's a lot better. And then what I can do is I can nest it one more time and then render that, and I'm going to apply warp stabilizer again, advanced again, go to detailed analysis and click that. Okay, and then I'm going to change it to maybe 5%. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's much better. That's usable. I'd be happy to use this, I think. Okay, so let's do the second hyperlapse now. So same thing, I'm going to go into LRT time-lapse and go into hyperlapse 2. This one should be a lot quicker to process because it's only 1 second of footage. It's nearly 2 seconds actually, because we did 46 pictures here. If I play that back, this is what we have. It looks great. Again, keyframes wizard, and maybe, actually I don't really need any keyframes, so I'll leave that at 0. I'm going to drag into Lightroom. And then I'm going to go into develop, go into my settings, and I'm just going to use the same settings we used from the previous edit, which was this. And then I'm going to sync it to all the footage, or all the stills. Then I'm going to apply auto transition, apply my deflicker to about here. Then I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to come back into Lightroom. I'm going to read metadata from files. Once that's done, I'm going to export into Hyperlapse 2 as 4K stills. And then I'm going to find the right folder again and export there. We'll wait for that to finish now. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to export it in ProRes, and once that's done, I can import it into Premiere Pro. Here we go, we have it here. See what that looks like without any stabilization. Doesn't look too bad. I'm going to apply my warp stabilizer now and hit detailed analysis and see what that gives us. Okay, so that's done, and I can see that's already cropped quite a bit of the footage, so I'm going to go down to maybe 10%, see what that looks like. Yeah, this looks amazing. And I can actually, I'm happy to use the subspace warp sort of effect for that. Yeah, because that just looks wow. Yeah, that looks incredible. I might actually put this one at the start. Boom. I might actually speed this one a bit more. So I might nest it one more time. And then maybe speed it up to, let's say, 150%. That doesn't look too bad. I think this part is too shaky, so I'm, could go back and shoot it better. And then I'll do the same thing for the third hyperlapse, and you pretty much get the idea. And that's pretty much how I do my hyperlapses, guys. I know you guys sent me so many questions about this through social media, so really happy that you guys like this style of shooting. And if you do have any questions, as always, put them in the comments down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And I'm already thinking about what to shoot next, or what kind of tutorial to do. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any ideas, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.